Hello, listeners. Welcome back to the show. This week, we've got a great guest on. This is Phil Hodgetts. He's a broadcast recruiter. He's head of strategic accounts at Caspian One. Welcome, Phil.
Hey, Ben. How's it going?
Not too bad, not too bad. A bright winter's day today in the UK.
Yeah, it's beautiful here as well. So
good stuff. I probably want to just get straight into it, really, and just start talking about, where you started off and what you did to get into the industry.
yeah, sure. So it was one of those conversations on a kind of like a parents' evening or whatever you'd call it at school, where I didn't know what I wanted to do, and one of my teachers just said, "Hey, look, you're good at English and you're good at media studies. Why don't you do a journalism course at university?" And then I went, "Sounds good." Applied for a load of journalism courses. I was entered into one at Lincoln and one at Southampton Solent, or it was Southampton Institute then. That's how old I'm getting. But yeah, so I just went to the one that was local nearby. And I went to Southampton. Did a journalism course in broadcast journalism. So I learned about studio, like how to run a desk, mixing desk. What play out meant, what post production was. Work my way around Avids and all that sort of thing for editing packages together. So just kind of learnt the ropes around being a broadcast journalist. And then I went into that field actually in my last year of uni. I worked as a journo, and then I went to London for a little while and did some work in the consumer unit at the BBC, pulling various different packages together for like Crime Watch and Rogue Traders and Whistleblower. Some of these programs probably don't exist anymore, but yeah, just kind of pulling bits of video together, being a bit of a runner, running tapes from kind of NV at post-production facility to White City and all sorts of cool things. And then I ended up in radio journalism as a journalist. But that I did that for about 2 years, and I think the challenge that I had with it, maybe it's because it was journalism, was the work is quite competitive. Really, you have to be in London, and where I was in my life, I didn't really feel like London was the right place to be, and also just the money. Really, I was never going to buy a house or get some roots in being a journo, because the rates and the day rates and things, they weren't great. So. £50 a day, Ben. Can you believe it? That's what I was earning. Yeah, it's low. So I had a mate who worked at a recruitment company called Caspian One. We face off into the fintech world as well, into finance companies like HSBC, Deutsche Bank, big banks and hedge funds and things, providing technology folk to do big projects for them. And he worked on that side, and he said, "Oh, we've got a broadcast arm. Broadcast. Come and join us." And it took me a long time to learn how to do recruitment, because it's not straightforward. It's not as simple as just reading a CV and hoping that some keywords match your job description and sending a load of people over and then crossing your fingers. You have to actually be quite well. You have to know your subject matter. So you have to be really well versed in broadcast technologies. And you've got to be able to talk to people as well and get certain bits of information out of them, which was quite handy because I had that training through journalism. I could interview people and get information out of them that way. So I kind of utilize that, and it's just going from there, really. My clients are broadcast businesses like Sky, Channel 4, BT Media and Broadcast. A whole host of various different organizations that have technology media as a big part of their need, and that's it. And now I'm here, and now I'm sat with you talking about this. So yeah, that's my journey, really.
That's great. And just picking up on that early comment about you kind of being good at English, and I always ask people if there was any sort of calling signs for them, if there's any signposts or any flags on the way through the industry that they knew that they had, a role in the industry somewhere, perhaps. Was there any more sort of signposts along the way that you really stand out looking back?
Yeah, I think for me, the media studies thing, when I was at school doing media studies, it was the first time of getting my hands in on a camera and some editing equipment. And from that point on, I knew that that's the type of industry that I wanted to be in. I wanted to be involved in a creative, media-focused industry. Now, whether that might have ended up being marketing or recruitment or journalism, it could have been anything really. But I knew that I kind of enjoyed being around, like your background, for example, which is where you blatantly are not at the moment. And I don't have a background to do that. But sorry. But to be around that sort of thing. I mean, I'm in a band, and I was always I'm always the person who puts the PA kit together. So I knew that that was a calling, that I didn't want to do anything else or be in another industry. I spent about 6 months as an insurance sales guy, and it was the worst job I had ever. But it was so boring. There was nothing fun about it. And I didn't think that this job in recruitment was going to necessarily give me that outlet of playing with kit and being involved in studios. But actually it does. I have to, if I go and see a client like ITN, for example, I go to Gray's Inn Road, I go into the studio, and I actually get to ask them what it's all about and what they really need for that sort of gig, for that sort of job. And that's been in part of the industry. The broadcast industry is by far the most sociable, friendly, creative, enjoyable, but also very time constrained, pressurized. It's got a lot about it that means that I would never work. I don't think I'd ever work in any other industry.
Yeah, no, that's great to hear, actually. And I guess your journey from having experience sort of working in the industry to the recruitment field. What's the most rewarding part of moving into recruitment for you, Phil?
The most rewarding part's probably being able to find people jobs is a good thing, but also help the client get to the result that they need, that they so wish to get to. If we're working with a client that's working on a specific project, they need certain resources that they just don't have internally. To help them find those resources so that they can actually reach their end goal, that's quite satisfying. But to also find the people to work so they can earn the money and have the work there to do is also obviously really satisfying. Off the back of that, it's recruitment, so you do get a bit of cash in your pocket, which is also quite satisfying. But those three things, I guess. You're the owner of your own destiny in terms of how much money you can earn. But along that journey, you're fulfilling the needs of both a client and a candidate. And when those three things all kind of come together, you know that you're doing a really good job.
Yeah. And I guess is it onwards and upwards for you in terms of recruitment? No sort of looking back to those sort of journalist days. Is it sort of full steam ahead with recruitment for you?
Well, yeah, it kind of has to be, because I've got a mortgage and kids and other things that means that I have to, I have to be very sensible about my kind of career choices, I think. I never envisaged, and I don't think if anybody wakes up and rolls out of bed when they're 16 years old and thinks, I'm going to be a recruitment consultant, then fundamentally there's something wrong in our education system for that to happen, I think. But it's one of those jobs where if you're entrepreneurial, you enjoy chasing things, you enjoy chasing down opportunities, and you also enjoy that kind of Sherlock Holmes nature of deducing where your right candidate's going to be. If someone's got experience in this, it means they could have done that, and if they've done that and that means they'll be good for this. You've got to really kind of put your detective hat on. I really actually enjoy that part of the job. So in terms of enjoyment, fulfillment from what I'm doing, it is onwards and upwards, and this is the only thing I could think about doing. If I had it my own way, and if I could earn the same amount of money, I'd love to still be a journalist, because when I was a journalist, I would spend one day, I'd be in a courtroom hearing about like one of the biggest cases that you could hear about locally or nationally, and being in, and like seeing the actual outcome of that in front of you, and then reporting on it firsthand, what's going on. And then I'd leave that job and I'd go down to a football club and go and interview a football manager or a couple of footballers, and then I'd go home. The next day I'd get up, I'd go into the newsroom, and there'd be a Goodwood Festival of Speed, and I'd have to go down there and interview Lewis Hamilton because he's down there, and it's just a great job when that, when you don't know what you're going into, but you're going to go into something pretty juicy, because your job is to find the news. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. But it seems like you've brought that passion from the working in the broadcast industry, and sort of you've kept that sort of drive and the passion from the industry and applied it to your, to what the candidates might be going through or helping them along the way.
I think you've got to be open. I think if I was to go back to myself when I was kind of 17, 18, or even at university, I think I would be telling myself to not pin my hopes on one certain dream, but have a North Star. Have a, that North Star might be to, have a mortgage, a house, and a family by the age of 30 or something like that, or it might be to be a CEO of, I don't know, Sky or Discovery or whatever that North Star might be. Of course, have something like that in mind, but understand that the journey's never just a linear thing to get you to that point. There's ups and there's downs all around. You're on a roller coaster the whole way through, and just make the decision. I would advise myself to follow my gut instinct and know that even if it feels like it's a risky decision that I'm making the right decision at that moment, in that point in time. No one ever told me that back then. I was just kind of falling into one thing to the other, and that's a good experience equally as well. I never had a definite, this is going to sound really kind of silly, but until I knew that I did want that 4-bedroom detached house with a driveway that was a decent walk to the beach, and my family to grow up in a nice area, that's been the only thing that I've really pinned on and gone, I'm gonna continue and I'm gonna work for that. So I don't know where I went with that blurb, but you just got to be open-minded when you're young, haven't you, really?
Yeah, and to sort of like feel your way through the industry, try a few different things, you'll quickly, I guess, find out what you do like and what you definitely don't like about the industry, and that's a journey that a lot of new entrants take, I guess.
Yeah, you've got to understand that there are going to be people that no one's ever going to roll out of bed in the morning. Everything always starts off with rolling out of bed in the morning, but no one's ever going to roll out of bed in the morning and think, right, I've got it in for Phil today. I'm going to do let's start that again. No one's going to roll out of bed in the morning and think, right, I've got it in for Phil today, and I'm going to make his life a misery, because the world doesn't revolve around Phil. Other people have got their other lives that they get on with without Phil. They don't just decide that they're going to ruin my day. If something's occurred and something's come along, there's been a cause and effect somewhere, and it's never about that person instinctively thinking that I'm really going to have a lot of fun giving this person some bad news or something like that. And so people are never, I'll try not to swear here, people are not going to set out to be idiots, basically. And it's never, you should never really kind of hold an agenda against somebody just because they've given you some poor news, whether that be, no, you can't have that job, or, we've chosen somebody else for this job over here. You might find yourself actually being that person's boss in 6 years' time. So you've got to keep as open mind as you possibly can do about every opportunity that lays at your door, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess just a bit of a sort of deep dive on the specifics around broadcast recruitment. Is there any gotchas when you're looking at candidates that are new to the industry? You get some CVs in, and they're sort of passionate, but is there any hard and fast rules or things that you spot straight away that is instant feedback for them?
CVs are a very difficult thing to get right, and when you're first starting out, you kind of don't have that much to put on there. But if you, I don't know. I mean, I don't like it when people have jumped about a lot. It depends on what the job is. If it's a contract job, then it's good that people have jumped about a lot. If it's a permanent job and somebody's after a permanent role, and then your CV looks like you've jumped around left, right, and center, think about the person who's reading that CV. They're probably going to think, I want to invest in the future of my team, and this person's going to be, part of that journey. So, does that CV jump out at me as somebody that is going to be with me in 2 years' time? Still be with me in 2 years' time. If your CV doesn't jump out like that, then you're probably not going to get even offered for an interview, because the hiring manager, if you like, who's reading that CV, is only going to have a finite amount of time to read it, and all they're going to look at is how many pages is it? Is it 2 or 3 pages long? Does it have the right technical skills? Does it have the right skills that I need on it? And where's the story of where this person's actually had these skills or experienced these skills? And if that doesn't jump out at somebody, they're probably just going to put it to one side and move on to the next one. Unfortunately, line managers that we go to interview with, they don't spend a lot of time reading CVs. They just they scan them. They have a very quick look at them. So you've got to be able to have some really decent structure and some very good and really good understanding of where your skill set definitely lies. If, for example, if you're a post-production engineer, then I'm going to expect to see somebody having various different post-production software on their CV. They're probably going to have some form of storage understanding. They'll have some basic IT networking skills and operating system skills. And then they will probably have worked in a post-production house or a facility somewhere in a broadcaster where you can tell that they've actually played with the kit that they're talking about playing with on their CV. So everything's got to be, you've got to justify it all the time. You've got to, every word, even though someone's not going to read it very, very well, you've got to be able to justify that you've got that experience at some point.
Yeah. And I guess there's different CVs that you see for talent and for creative side of the industry rather than sort of technical and engineering functional CVs, perhaps.
Yeah, from a creative perspective, if you're a creative, you're not necessarily going to hold down a job somewhere for 3 or 4 years. You are going to have jumped around a little bit. If you're a student and you're looking to go into the creative sector, you're going to want to put you're going to need to put a lot of work in working for free, I think. As a student, do you know what really annoys me is when a student will, whether they're creative or technical, whatever, we don't really deal with the creative types, but this still holds true, is when a student comes to us and seems really passionate about getting a job, and then when you arrange an interview for that person, they can't turn up because they've got a graduation party that night or something like that. Or I mean in COVID times, you're not going to have a graduation party, or you might do if you're a student. I don't know what's going on at the moment, but really, really annoys me is when then you have to turn around to that client and say, Johnny's not going to make it. Oh, why is that? They've got like a graduation get together that you're never going to get the opportunity to speak to that person again. So, trust me, don't turn up to your graduation ceremony or something. Go to that interview, because it might be the thing that's going to get you across the line. But if you're at university or if you're doing your A levels or whatever, put yourself out there to go and do some free work, to go and do some shadowing. I shadowed. That's how I got into journalism. I went in my degree. I shadowed a journo and looked at what they were doing all day. And then at the end of the day, the newsroom editor came up to me and just said, "Do you want? I've got someone's taking some holiday for the next couple of weeks. If you're free over those next couple of weeks, do you want some shifts and we'll pay you for them?" And I went, "Okay, that's not a problem." And I did 2 weeks. but 2 years later, I was still working, doing shifts for that company.
Yeah.
And you just got to you've got to bite the bullet, and you've got to do that. And a night out with your mates might sound amazing, but if that restricts you from doing some free work somewhere where that might open up another opportunity for you, don't go out, go and do that job.
Absolutely, yeah. And I guess just to ask you, have you come across, or do you deal in any sort of apprentice schemes or graduate schemes in the industry? Are these still a thing these days?
Yeah, not so much so. It depends on the role that you're going for. Graduate and apprenticeship schemes are worth getting into if you can get into one with a large organization like a BT, for example.
Yeah.
Because they really take care of people in that company, just as an example. And you're able to also, as a graduate within that business, you're able to experience a multitude of different things. So you might work with their commercial department for 3 months, then you might work with their operations and networking department. You might, so if you're not quite sure in the direction of where you feel like you're going to fit within the world of jobs and work, then go and talk to the people at those companies and see if there is those schemes available that you can jump onto. Because the people that I've spoken to who've been on those schemes have actually had a fantastic experience, and they've been paid for the luxury as well.
Yeah.
Which has been great. But I don't think many media companies do much grad and apprenticeship schemes.
Yeah.
But BT's definitely one of them. I don't know if we can mention any particular company names, but
yeah. Okay, that's great. And just a final thing, is recruitment consultants just concerned with CVs, or what other sort of support do you give candidates, or what other services do you offer essentially?
So we'll work with candidates to prepare them for interviews, and I think we can tell. I can tell when on the phone anyway, when someone's perhaps a bit shy, if you like, around talking about themselves. So without really knowing it, I'll just work with them to try and get some more information out of them and let them understand what what an interview situation is going to be like. And it is really daunting. It absolutely is really, really daunting, going into interviews. And you might fail the first 5 interviews that you have, because in failures where we learn, right, on how to adapt and get better. So if you go, I would always say to people, if you go into an interview and you don't get the job, don't worry about it. Just make sure that you can come away learning something about that experience, and then take that into your next one and just keep doing it. It's like learning how to drive, right? Some people take like 6 times to pass their test, and it isn't until like the 4th or 5th test that they do that actually something clicks, and they go, I shouldn't be that close to somebody, or I now understand what my braking distance is, and peripheral vision, or whatever that might be. And that's fine. And I know some of the best drivers that have taken 6 or 7 times to pass their driving test. It is what it is. Did people learn in different ways? So we will if there's any graduates or any people out there who are looking for work, we'll always want to kind of coach and work with you to understand, like, okay, so actually maybe we need to work on this part of your the way that you talk about your skill set. You need to be able to give examples. I won't just leave it to you to go and find an example. We'll work together to say, well, when did you work with this stuff, or how did you do it? How did you deal with this situation in your job at a bar or a fish and chip shop or whatever? I worked at a fish and chip shop and a bar, and I had relevant experience at those 2 places that serves me very well today. It's crazy how something like that could be so relevant for interviewing somewhere for a job, in a completely different industry. It totally is. So yeah, I think to answer your question, we will provide coaching for interviews. We'll provide kind of CV coaching as well, on how to best lay out your CV and what to put in there and what not to put in there. And you know, we will help you through the process of getting to a job offer as well. And we're quite honest around offers, because when you get a job offer, that can be daunting. The interview, you might have flown through the interview process, and then you might crumble as soon as somebody actually offers you something.
Yeah.
You know, so you need a bit. Sometimes you need a bit of support through that, and we will just be able to the best thing to do is just play with ideas with people.
Yeah.
You know, yeah.
And you have a special broadcast website, don't you? With all the latest openings on there, opportunities. That's caspian1-broadcast.com.
That's it. Yeah. So if you go to the website, you'll be able to register your CV on our website, and somebody will be in touch with you to just kind of qualify your situation with you and see what sort of things that you'd be interested in. You can register for certain types of jobs. So if you are that post-production engineer, you can register to only get alerts for post-production engineer roles if they were to come up. And yeah, there's some bits about us, you know, all the people that work here at Caspian One, so you can get to know a bit about us as well.
Yeah. And the types of role you deal with, permanent and contract roles?
Yeah, so we'll do both permanent and contract, but we'll also work with, you know, if you want to be a project manager, if you know, solution architect, designer, a network engineer, you know, operations, whatever part of the broadcast chain you want to work in, should be on our website that you can kind of register for. We are less creative, so we're not going to be looking at placing camera people or you know, that sort of thing. We're more so looking at technology driven roles, really. That's our bit.
Okay, fantastic. Well, Phil, I'd just like to say thanks for having you on the show. You've been a great guest, and hope to speak again soon.
Not a problem, my friend. Always good to speak to you, Ben.
Okay, take care, Phil. Bye.
Cheers. See ya.